Welcome in this podcast episode. Today I'm talking to Marjadi Kooistra. And when you're looking at her LinkedIn profile, it's still Maria, the Dutch name. But since the IDG Summit, it is Marjadi. Welcome, Marjadi.
Thank you so much.
And I think it is an interesting story to start with before we go into your history and your career and the company you're having now with the blue credits and so on. And we come to all that part, but let's start with this whole life-changing moment at the IDG Summit.
Wow, you just bump into it immediately. I
Yes.
thought you didn't have any questions ready, but you did have the entrance ready. So that's where we met, actually. Yes, the IDG Summit. It's now 2 weeks ago. And I came there because I was attracted to the IDG framework, as we all were. I got goosebumps the first time I saw it, and I thought, yeah, that is the answer. That is the way to go forward to actually start working with the stakeholder management in Together for the Better Good, because I missed something there. Together with my husband, we have the company Together for the Better Good, doing projects in blue carbon, and I missed the people side in that. I tried to do stakeholder management, and I really felt that I was bumping into something like a big border or a big something. People didn't want to move, go forward. And then the IDG framework came forward, and I thought, yeah, this is what I have to integrate in stakeholder management. I'm also an executive coach, team coach, whatever you can call it. But that was how I was attracted to the IDGs, and that is how I ended up at the IDG Summit. Of course, long story in between, we will talk about that later, but that moment, what happened with me when I actually entered the IDG Summit, first thing what happened to me was in the unconference. There was one day up front before the official 2 days, and when I entered that building, I actually met for the first time in 3.5 years my online friend Rafaela. And we were friends for 3.5 years. We met during the Gaia journey of the Presidencing Institute, which started during the first lockdown in the COVID crisis. And we have been friends ever since, and we helped each other through those difficult years, went through the U hundreds of times together, been sleeping in the bottom of the U, I don't know, for 2 years maybe, finding it very comfortable, but holding hands and meeting her in real life was like, I think I cried for 10 minutes. So it was very, very emotional. And if I look back to the IDG Summit, it continued like that. It was like these moments of really connecting with people, heart to heart, opening up, feeling safe, because it was really safe space, and starting crying for stories told, life stories, business stories, really finding myself in a place I haven't been for such a long time, and certainly not during congresses and summits in my former life as financial services professional. So the first day of the official summit started, and in this big circus, sitting there with a lot of women actually around me. There were definitely not only women. If I look back, I think there even were 50-50, maybe 60-40. There were a lot of men, but I was sitting surrounded by women. And then Antonia, the poet, came, and she started with a poem about the ripple effect of a butterfly on one side of the world, and then what it could actually cause on the other side of the world. And I really feel like the IDGs is doing that. I mean, this ripple effect of the IDGs starting last year and now with more than 400 hubs around the world with corporates, with governments, with institutions now starting to be curious about it, starting to implement it, etc., etc. So for me, it was really a very emotional moment, and I started crying immediately. It just started the summit, and I thought, oh my God, what is happening with me? So it continued like that the first day. These stories, they were so transparent, so open, so authentic, and I related so much with the people. So it was really heart to heart. Then the second day, I was in track 2, and it was about global cooperation. And I listened to Freddy from Rwanda, and he's a survivor of the genocide. And he told us a story about how he lost his parents and his sisters in 1994, being 18 years old. And I heard his story before online in a trauma special from also the IDG organization last year. And he told it a little bit in a different way. And I think everybody was crying. There were more than 200 people in that room, and men and women, they were looking at each other. And there was no other way than start opening your heart, because he was talking about forgiveness and colonialism and trauma and everything around that. So after he talked, we kind of needed a break. Forgive me, I'm very bad in names. So this facilitator comes up, and he has done a lot of breaks in between. We're doing a kind of an exercise to get everybody back grounded again. And he asked us to look around, choose a person we didn't know yet, and introduce ourselves. So I looked around, and I started talking with, I think she was from the US. I can't remember her name. And we introduced ourselves. We got each 90 seconds, and the story went like, well, I'm Marjadi Kooistra. I have a company with my husband, 2 children, blah, 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 born and raised in Holland, blah, blah, blah. And the woman introduced herself. And then the facilitator asked us, after having done this exercise, and how did that feel? What did it do something that you, yeah, well, just thinking in just reproducing a story about yourself, but it didn't come to the heart. So he said, I would like you to do the same exercise, but speak from the heart. So, okay, do the same exercise. So we look at each other, and the woman puts her hand on my shoulder and she says, you start, because I really don't know what to say, speaking from the heart. And I said, yeah, I actually don't know either, but I will try. So I took a deep breath, and then my voice opened, and my voice said, I'm Asian. And I'm like, my head is like, what the, seriously? Are you seriously going to say this? And my heart says again, I'm Asian. And then my mind silenced, and my heart started, and I was denied to be Asian because of everything what happened with my family, formally, during the war, with my mother. And a lot came up. I didn't say it immediately, but it was really like, I'm Asian. I was denied to be Asian. I was not allowed to speak the language. It was a secret language. I was not allowed to be with my family a lot because it was denied by my mother. She didn't wanted us to be Indonesian. We had to be Dutch. We needed to be proud to be Dutch. And I was proud. I've always been proud to be Dutch. I'm still proud to be partly Dutch, but I'm also partly Indonesian. So I started crying, and of course the woman started crying also. And I was really like, what happened here? It was something I have never said in my whole life. And what was most strange was that in that moment when it happened, when this really deep voice, this connection with my heart came up, that my mind was really fighting it. It was so strong, saying, "What the fuck are you doing? This is not what you're not going to walk that path." It was really like that. And then when my heart was really like, "No, no, no, this is really what I want to say. I am Asian." My mind silenced and tried to got into connection with that part of myself. It was a life-changing moment in 90 seconds. And I get goosebumps again. And I've told the story now many, many times. And I was confused, which is strange because I've been Indonesian my whole life, but it was never so much put forward in the world as until that moment. So I called my husband in the evening in my hotel room. He said, "And what happened?" "Well," I said, "I'm gonna tell you, I'm Asian." And he's like, "I know, you've always been Asian. You never wanted to be Asian, but I fell in love with you because you are Asian." And it's such an obvious thing, but I never accepted it because it was not accepted by my mother and by my family. But especially my mother, completely in denial of having these Asian roots. So after that, it felt so natural actually to start using the name Marjadi, which has been in my passport my whole life. My Indonesian name has been in my passport. It's Binti Marjadi Kooistra. And my parents chose to use the abbreviation Marja because it's very Dutch. And there were moments in my life that I felt like, oh, I like Marjadi. It's such a beautiful name. And when I started going to university, I thought I'm going to change my name because nobody knows me. And then I can use the name Marjadi. When we moved to Luxembourg in our lives, we were 28. I'm going to use it. So there were really like these life-changing moments that I thought I'm going to use the name and never had the nerve. And now it was actually quite natural to start using the name Marjadi. It is not an easy transition, I have to say, because my mind, especially during the night, in the first week after the summit, I woke up and my mind was literally saying to me, "Come on, don't do so difficult. Don't be so difficult to yourself. You make it so difficult. Da da da. Continue to use your name, Arya." And so I have to find my way in there, and I'm in transition, but I transformed into this Indonesian Dutch woman, not Dutch woman, no, Indonesian Dutch woman. And since I opened up, even that second day, it was as if the Indonesian and in the Asian part of the IDG summit people actually saw it because they actually came to me or I came to them. I don't know, but something happened. So in the meantime, in this 2 weeks afterwards, became part of the IDG Asian Wisdom Network. I became part of an Asian group of women, and they embraced me and they literally say to me, "Welcome, welcome home." And I'm like, what is happening? So it's this energy on this so much deeper level that when you are united in these kind of summits, people feel it, people see that change. So that's what happened.
So I forgot to mention, just for you listeners, to be clear, IDG stands for Inner Development Goals. The two of us, are so used to calling it IDGs, but maybe we should say Inner Development. And if you want to learn more about it, go to innerdevelopmentgoals.org. Then you learn everything about it. So let's see. Let's talk a bit about the path to get here and to see what happens next. So your mom is Indonesian, your dad is Dutch, and you were born and raised in the Netherlands. and you go to a gymnasium. So you study hard a lot. I think it sounds very Asian that the parents expect from you to do the best in school as you can. And then you decide to go to study medicine. And we're going to see why it's because later you go to economics. So why did you choose medicine first? What was the ideas there? What was behind that part?
I was 13 years old, and then, as I always tell the story, my parents decided to go for the second part of getting children. I was at that moment only with my brother. He was 11 years, and they wanted to have more children, so they got into the second phase of getting children. And I love children. I noticed I love children. So I had babies around me between my 13th and until I left home. And this passion came up to become a pediatrician. So during my whole life of high school, I wanted to become a pediatrician and wanted to study medicine and walk that path. So as you know, in Holland, you need to have a lottery to get into medicine school, at least at that moment. And I got actually immediately when I graduated from high school into the studies. So I started to study, but because I already wanted it from 13 years onwards, I actually didn't really dive into the whole curriculum of the studies. With hindsight, of course, very stupid, but it's like a child is actually operating, I think. And it's a lot learning by heart. And I'm a very analytical person. So I remember a moment during a college, do you say that? Yeah, college. Well, lecture. During a lecture that I asked the question why this muscle was called this Latin name. Because if I would actually look at this Latin name, it should be called different. So it was just like a very analytical way of looking also at names, because I needed to know the name by heart when I was doing the anatomical course. And the professor looked at me and said, "Mrs. Kooistra, you should start accepting the fact that it is what it is. This is the name. You should not dissect the name, because maybe you are right, but that is too analytical. You just have to get it and have to learn it by heart." And then I thought, oh, this is not going to work, because I cannot actually learn all these names by heart without thinking, okay, where is it coming from? So that is actually the journey that I went through. In those 2 years that I did medicine, and I scored for the first time in my life very, very low figure. So I stopped with that study, but I didn't have another passion. And I wanted to do actually chemistry or even mathematics, but that was like, I mean, we're talking about the 80s, and that was like too manly. I mean, for a woman to start chemistry or mathematics, so it passed my mind, and I thought, no, I shouldn't do that, because I mean, no, that's for men. So I did economics, and that was purely based on the fact that it's an easy study. At least I thought it was an easy study. And you could earn a lot of money with it. So a very completely different side of the spectrum. So I did it. Did I like it? No, but I just wanted to have to study, and I wanted to graduate and have a job. So my perspective changed completely. This love for medicine stayed, and this love for children stayed my whole life. And yeah, sometimes I felt like, oh God, I should have actually gone through with it and continue with it, but I didn't. So I made a big career out of economics. I started with the Robeco group, and I was good at it in a certain way, but there was no heart. So I remember that I was with Robeco. I did a specialty monetary economics, and there were two kind of jobs that you could get. You could get into government uh, with the Ministry of Economics, or you could get a job like a fixed income portfolio manager with Robeco, who was doing like a kind of traineeship, something like that. But my whole group actually was looking for the same jobs because there were not a lot of jobs at that period. It was an economic down cycle. So I actually got a job. We applied, I think, with 30 people, and I got a job. So I was very happy. I needed to be happy because I had the job that everybody wanted to have. And I started with the job, and after 2 weeks, I thought, oh my God, is this it? Looking at screens and looking at graphs and yield curves and whatever you have, and durations, and very, very, very male environment. So I remember sitting on a department with only men, and then me and another woman. Very, very male. I survived that environment for almost 28 years. And I was very, very unhappy from the beginning. And I tried to compensate that with, okay, I was earning a lot of money, so I could do whatever I wanted, go on holidays, buy nice stuff, everything. But I was happy. So that was like a cycle in my life. And I got a lot of energy by doing new things. So I was good in setting up projects and starting up projects, getting people together. So what you can see in my curriculum is that I have jobs for 2.5, 3 years max, and then start a new job because I really wanted to have this new energy and feel new people and get this passion in and build a team, blah, blah, blah. So I continued like that. We moved to Luxembourg. Luxembourg was the investment fund country in Europe. They started with a certain legislation which made it good for investment fund companies to start their investment management company there. So we moved to Luxembourg, and we lived there for 8 years. For me, a very gray period because it was all about money, made a very steep career, became managing director of the investment management company of ABN AMRO, did good, got 2 children, and then got into burnout. There were some family things around that actually was the last drop to push me into burnout. And we left Luxembourg. We went on an around the world trip. Burnout was a new thing in psychology world. It was always that you were overstressed and you needed a rest, like 2 months and then go back. But burnout was like new because we're talking now about 23 years ago, 24 years ago. And it happened to women a lot. Very confronting. Who try to be in control, so control freaks. And very much driven to be perfect. So there were some kind of definitions of who was really kind of victim of burnout.
Is it women in men jobs?
Yeah, yeah. So I really got moved more to the male energy and not in contact with what I wanted, not even able to listen what I really wanted. So I just wanted to leave. So we left Luxembourg and we went on a round the world trip, which was amazing and horrible at the same time, because if you have a burnout, you need like a constant and uh, same kind of ritual every day, because that gives some kind of basis. And then going on an around the world trip where every day is like a big surprise. I don't know where I'm going to sleep in the evening was not really a good thing for my burnout. It was a good thing to create the family that we had in in the same time, because we had these two children. I was working 60 hours a week, and they were they were 1.5 and 3.5, and they were full time in the crash, and we became a family. So it was very good for becoming a family. We came back because 11th of September happened during our trip. We actually wanted to stay in Australia, so we started in Asia, and then we went over to Australia, and
You went to Indonesia?
we went to Indonesia. Yeah, yeah. The first time we went to Indonesia was on our honeymoon, which was really, really beautiful and really strange, because there this disconnect already started. So we got married and we had a backpacking honeymoon. We went to Indonesia, Java. My mother is from Java. And I remember the first time that I really felt that I was Indonesian was on the train station of Bogor. We were in this train trip for I don't know how many hours, very busy. You can imagine the pictures with it. And we were there, two Dutch people, very tall. And we stepped out of the train, and there was this really, really busy train station with all these Indonesian people. And I was overlooking it because I'm like, yeah, almost a head higher than an average Indonesian person. And I was overlooking this big crowd of Indonesian people. And I thought, oh my God, these people are 50% of my genes. That was the very, very first time in my life that I really looked at it and thought, oh, that's 50% of me. So that is still also a moment that I thought, oh my God. So at that moment, very much connected. And then during the honeymoon, fell in love with Bali, especially. During the honeymoon, and also around the world trip, we've stayed for I think almost 8 weeks in Bali. We lived there. We rented a villa and lived there with the two children and took a rest. Yeah, Indonesia. Since we got married, I've been there like 5 or 6 times. Also with my eldest daughter, once, because my eldest daughter is for me an example. She really embraces her Asian roots, and I was always surprised about that. But she is very, very aware of the fact that she's 25% Asian, and she always said she's Asian. She's more proud of her Asian roots than she is of her European roots. Because she was born in Luxembourg, her father is Dutch, her grandfather is Dutch, but her grandmother is Indonesian, and she's so proud of it. So I just had a talk with her this week, and she's like, "Oh, Mom, you're finally embracing your Asian roots. How amazing is that?" I said, "Yeah, you always did. Yeah, I always introduced myself as being Asian, born in Luxembourg. I actually never mentioned the Dutch part," she says, and I didn't know that. So that is also something very beautiful, but also a kind of denial of the Dutch roots again. So there's a lot of trauma, generational trauma, ancestral trauma, um, systemic trauma in this kind of thing. Colonialism, of course. So But to go back to the around the world trip, being in Australia, I wanted to live in Australia because we actually packed our whole home in Luxembourg in a way that it could be shipped to Australia. That was the idea. And then 11th of September happened when we were in Kent. And then the only thing we thought about was, okay, we want to go back home to where our family is and where our friends are. So we finished our trip for Australia, which was another 3 months, and then we went back home with the idea to stay there in Holland for maybe maximum 3 years, but it became 20 years. So I make a big leap then of 20 years. Yeah, what happened in between? The children grew up, and Holland is a very kind of safe environment because we knew it, of course. I mean, we've been born and raised there. We know the whole school system, the educational system, whole social system, etc., etc. So before you know it, you're 5 years ahead, and the children have little friends and have their little sport clubs, and you just look at each other and say, okay, well, we need to be happy here because the children are happy. So let's look at it again, emigrating or doing something else when the children are leaving home. And that is actually what happened with us. With some up and down cycles in my life, because every time I went back to the asset management world, the investment management world, because it was so easy to earn money and to have a job again. And that has been like a big trap in my whole life. So, okay, if I wanted to make a change and I got unsecure or uncertain, go back. I mean, it's easy. I mean, I could do it now. I can apply and I get a beautiful job because we're now having this startup and it's still a startup. I mean, we really have to start continue to knock on doors and tell that we are here, together for the better good. So it's still my personal journey is really about becoming aware of the traps every time and then doing something about it. This inner journey of listening to my heart and to my soul. What do I really, really want? What opens my heart? What gives me energy? What gives me passion? So moving from this rational financial services professional to what I'm doing now, I became a coach 4 years ago because I was at that moment doing a big reorganization of a company as a managing director, being part of a big board with people from the government, semi-government. So a lot of important people and little me thinking, okay, does this make me happy? I mean, and then listening to my heart. No, I really, really should start listening to the voice inside that I want to do something with people and something else than money, which is just something which I can read on the screen, but I never see the money. I never feel the money. I made billions of money for big companies, but so
Hold on.
Yeah.
I want to just get back a little bit to this burnout period.
Yes.
How did you get out? What did you do? What system did you organize? How did you work to get out of burnout?
I've been in burnout for 3.5 years, and that's a very, very long time. And maybe it's Indonesian, maybe it's Dutch, I don't know. I'm not the kind of person who's going to knock on doors to ask for help. And that is also something I had to learn later on. So I went into myself and I was reading a lot. So I was starting to do yoga, was starting to do breathing exercises, and especially the breathing exercise together with a coach because I was so clear enough to actually started to go to a coach. Breathing exercises together with the coach started to make the difference. And I remember that I got an exercise from this coach after being 2 years in this burnout. I thought, yeah, I need to get a coach or something like that. So after 2 years, I went to this coach and she gave me a breathing exercise. And she said, Marja, try to get 3 full present breaths in one go. No thoughts, just 3 times breathing. Sounds easy, doesn't it? It took me a year to get there. I couldn't get into a normal breathing 3 times without any thoughts, without going away in my mind. And I learned it by walking the new dog that we bought for the children, because every morning I went with this dog, and then at a certain moment we were walking on a path nearby a canal, and I was starting to breathe. And it took me like 3-4 weeks in that moment, I was already trying for 6 months to start doing the breathing. And then I noticed that my little doggy was really sitting next to me and looking over the waters and doing it with me. So she taught me to start breathing, and then I took it to a different level, and that was when I was doing my mascara in the mirror. I noticed that every time when I put up my mascara, that I started to hyperventilate. So the symptoms of my burnout were like hyperventilation, like tickles around my face, and really tinkling fingers, and really getting completely disappearing in my head, and panicky, this kind of things. In the beginning, it was worse. It was black. I didn't see a way out. It was just black. So I was doing all my mascara, and I started to notice that I was hyperventilating when I was doing my mascara. So the next level was doing the 3 breaths when I was doing my mascara. That took me months. I couldn't go down into my body with the breathing. So that was my first way of actually noticing that breathing helped me to get rid of the stress and the symptoms of burnout. And listening to my body, listening to, okay, what is burnout? Listening to, okay, when I start feeling things like tingling mouth, or in my fingers, or bands around my head, or this feeling, I should act upon it. So the connection with my body became very important. And it took me a journey of almost 10 years to live with it. Because after 3-4 years, I started to have a new job again. Of course, there's stress. And every time I reached the point that I realized, okay, there's something with me. I have to acknowledge the fact that I feel this again, or that I feel that again. And I had to make a decision to do it differently. So I had to learn to embrace the fact that I had a burnout, and I had to learn to live with it, because it will never leave you when you once had a burnout, unless you start listening to your body and to your heart. With me, it worked like that for me. And still now, I mean, when I get like stressed, I'm like, and I feel, okay, what is happening? Why am I breathing that high? Why am I feeling this? Oh, it's because of this, that. Okay, I have to do it differently then. So there's always this connection with my body after that period. And it took some time, but the acknowledgement, embracing the fact that it was what it is, and that is now part of me, actually made it better and better and better. And now I can live with it. I think it will never leave me because I'm very prone to these kind of symptoms. I'm still a control freak. I had to learn how to get a little bit more loosen, to become aware of that I really want to control everything. I had to acknowledge that I want everything to be perfect, that life is not perfect. So I had to deal with that. I had to learn to delegate, all these kind of things. It was part of the journey, and yeah, that's it.
Some part when you were working at ABN, you decided to open a shoe store.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think it was when you were working. No, it was when you just left T. Rowe Price. Um, how did that satisfy your difficulties with your job? How did it compensate? Did it compensate? How did it compensate your feelings with the work that you normally were doing?
Yeah. Up till that moment, when people were asking what I was doing, I was always saying, okay, I'm having that kind of job in that kind of company. But if I could do it all over again, I would do something in fashion because I love fashion. And then I was reaching 40 years and I thought, okay, I've been through burnout. I've done so many things. And every time I just hear myself saying this to people when I introduce myself. So I was literally thinking, how pathetic is it when you become 65 and you have pension and you still say, if I could do it all over again, I would do something in fashion. I have to do this. I have to do this. So that was this little seed, and I started to think, oh, what would I like and what would I love? And yeah, but every time this voice was saying, yeah, but you don't have any experience in fashion. Well, then my heart was saying, yes, but you know what you like and you know what you love. So I just took a leap of faith when I was 42, I think, because I wasn't happy again at T. Rowe Price. And this time T. Rowe Price. And I thought, I'm just going to do it. Whatever. So I literally rented a shop in Almere Haven because I love that area and I lived in Almere. And I went to Milan and still also now in meditation when it's asked in a visualized meditation, okay, go back to a moment that made you really, really happy. It is that moment when I came to the exchange in Milan and only shoes and only labels and only beautiful people and fashion. And I was like a little girl in a candy shop, you know. I was like, oh my God, and this energy and this passion. But I didn't know anything about the business. So I just did what felt good. I wanted to have a few labels, and everybody upfront said, you're never going to get these labels because you need to have experience in the business. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm going to get these labels. And I don't know how, but I had been in sales and relationship management, so I knew how to talk. So I just went to these labels and I did my thing. And at the end of the 3 days of the shoe exchange, I had 10 labels in portfolio, which were like very high end and hip and state of the art. They were sustainable labels. They did their everything with the paint and painting the leather, etc., in a sustainable way. Blah blah blah. So I was very conscious about those kind of labels, and I got them in my portfolio. I bought all the shoes. It's crazy if I think about it, but the energy, like really being in the moment and just making one step every time, one step, because I didn't know anything. So it was really like, okay, what feels good? What is rational? What is sensible? Okay, next step, next step, next step. So I got my shop and I wanted to have a beautiful shop. So what was the idea? Yeah, well, it would be great if it would be in an L magazine or in a Vogue magazine. Yeah, but then you have to have a state-of-the-art interior architect. So I talked with a friend and he said, well, I know the interior architect of the Chanel shop in the PC Hoofdstraat at that moment. And I thought, oh, okay, um, I can't pay that kind of money. And he said, well, maybe he likes your idea of sustainability, of reusable, upcycled material, blah, blah, blah. So I contacted this interior architect and he thought it was a challenge to have such a small budget because I had like very small budget and create an really nice job. So we did, and yes, I ended up in an editorial of the L, and I think of the Marie Claire. I had a beautiful shop. It gave me so much energy. And what did I learn of it? That you can do anything, anything, if you just do it with passion and with heart and connect with your mind, with what you know about what is rational, what is sensible to do. And just make every time this first step and be open for it because I didn't know anything of that business. Unfortunately, as an economist, I thought it was the good moment because we were in a down cycle and looking at the past, we would go up again, but we ended up in a very long economic down cycle with, I think, a triple whammy. So three downs. We had like the Spanish, Greek. Well, it was all in that period, 2008 to 2012, 13. I had to stop it. Um, it's still one of the most amazing journeys of my life. I would love to go back, but in the same time, I also know, no, it's past me. I've done it. What did I learn from it? What I said, you can do anything, really anything, if you do it with passion and use everything aligned, your mind, your heart, and your doing. Just be aligned but if you really, really want it, it gives so much energy and it's such a great journey. And it's the same now with Together for the Better Good. I mean, when we're not from the sustainability world, but we have this passion for the ocean and passion for climate change that we really want to do something about it. We want to help Mother Earth. We really feel this from the bottom of our souls. And okay, how can we add value in this space by combining what we know with what we want and what our heart wants and where our heart wants to make a difference? And it's not an easy journey. It's never an easy journey. Nobody said it would be easy. Nobody. But it's, I think, the ultimate way of living for us. Um, and we have a crazy life. I'm now 57 and Hans is 55, and we've done crazy stuff in our life. But I really, really, when I will die tomorrow, I've lived such a full life. I've done everything that my heart wants to do. I've also lived 25 years in like a golden cage. Yes. My body was really trying to wake me up every time because I got into burnout. I got into being overstressed, everything around it. So that part, it taught me a lot because I didn't know. And now I'm more connected with my heart, and my Indonesian part is coming out, and I don't know what is going to happen there either. We're now talking with somebody already for a few months about the Philippines. I met a beautiful woman, and she's living in Thailand. I met my Japanese sister. So I don't know what is going to happen, but I just take it from there. And now with Together for the Better Good, trust the journey is a thing there. I mean, if you're doing what we're doing, you're not from this space. The trust and believe is so important because our mind is going to put in doubts and negative and judgment and cynicism and all this kind of stuff every time, and fighting that part by really listening to the heart. And no, this is what we want, and this is also what we know that is going to be. I know deep inside myself that it's going to happen. So we now are in contact with a US NGO, and they want to cooperate with us. So we're now talking about how we're going to put that forward in legal structure and into the market and everything.
Okay. Stop.
Yes.
Explain a bit, because you have created a blue carbon governance framework. Explain what blue carbon is.
Okay. Blue carbon. So you have green carbon, that's like forests and everything, sequestering carbon. And then you have blue carbon ecosystems, and those are the ecosystems within the ocean that actually sequester carbon. And then we're talking about mangroves, we're talking about seagrass beds, and we're talking about salt marshes. Those are the recognized blue carbon ecosystems. At the moment, kelp beds are also looked at, because we don't know a lot about how much they sequester carbon, so it's now under research, but that could easily also become a very big part of the blue carbon ecosystem world. So these kind of ecosystems sequester carbon, very important, of course, to fight climate change. They sequester in relation to green carbon, so talking about rainforests, everybody knows about, they sequester 4 to 5 times more carbon than the green forests. So that has not been a known fact for, well, until I think 2 years ago, something like that. So it's a rather new sector. And the way we got into contact with it was living on the island of Bonaire last year. We've been setting up our company. We decided to sell our house, doing a crazy thing again. From the profits we set up Together for the Better Good, because we knew, coming from the financial services, that it would be very hard to get funding for a bunch of people who were not coming from the sustainability world setting up this company. So we thought, well, we think it's necessary, so we're going to fund it ourselves. So we wanted to go to the Caribbean first, because it's a big love of us. And we wanted to start with Bonaire. It's a very small island, makes it very, well, the feasibility studies will be easier on a small island. Just see what is going on this island. And Hans was actually, my husband, volunteering with mangrove NGO, who were doing restoring of mangrove forests in Bonaire. And he was he became very, very passionate about it. Next to that, he was cleaning the beaches from sargassum. And sargassum is a kind of seagrass, which normally stayed around the sargassum area, which is in the middle of the Atlantic, I think. But due to climate change, the currents of the ocean are changing, and the sargassum is actually moving to the coast of Latin America and the Caribbean islands. So he was cleaning the beaches. He got very, very passionate about it. And then at a certain moment, he said, we have to do something for these people, for the mangroves and other blue carbon ecosystems. So we have to do something with the carbon credits on that. And I was like, no way I'm going back to the financial services sector. No, I'm not going to do that. So we had a discussion, I think, for 4 or 5 weeks. And at a certain moment, it changed in my mind. It became like, what can we do with our knowledge to add value to this market, to these projects? So as we know, financial services is very organized, very strict in risk management, etc., etc. These projects, very difficult to get funding, because it's an unknown sector, a lot of risks. So we married the two, and we came up with this blue carbon governance framework. and we're putting that around carbon projects so they can be held accountable for what they're doing. So there's a lot of risk management, there's compliance, there's due diligence, a lot of monitoring and control that we put around these projects, and which is not at the moment present around these projects. And that's why we hear so much about greenwashing, blue washing in this respect, fraud, and whatever you have. Very complicated projects because there are a lot of stakeholders around it, going from local governments to international governments, local people, indigenous people, NGOs, whatever, and you have to put them all together because it's one big team who needs to work with these projects and make it a success. And that's where the IDGs came in. Does that answer
because
that question?
there's four things that you deliver in services, and in one of those, stakeholder management, you have incorporated Theory U, which is directly connected to the inner development goals, and obviously, of course, the inner development goals. But it starts up with the setup of a program and project governance and management, stakeholder management, implementation of our CARES, that's abbreviation, the toolkit with its policies, processes, and procedures, and then advisory and structuring management and implementation of investment funds. But the idea is you have carbon offset and carbon credits, right? So these blue projects, they have carbon offset, and then you have companies who can buy carbon credits.
So what you have is that what happens with a project like this is that the first part is actually defining how much offset is actually regulated in this particular piece of sea or land, because mangroves is of course land. So there's a lot of scientific research done until it goes to the credit institute, who's going to look at it and say, okay, it's usable for issuing carbon credits. So there are a few credit institutes, carbon credit institutes, like they are going to look at the research done, and they are going to state what is possible in issuing carbon credits. The moment that it's possible, the carbon credits are issued by the local government, because the local government is actually the owner of the land and the sea. And if they're going to issue it, investors are going to invest in these credits. Then the money comes in, and then the projects can be sustained.
But who is investing? Why are they investing?
The investors could be looking for offset for their own company. So let's talk about an airplane company. They have a lot of carbon issuance, so they need to offset that. It's like we buy a ticket and then you can offset your carbon issuance. So they have that actually they need to offset their carbon use. So they're searching for projects they can invest in to do their carbon offset.
But to me, it still sounds strange, right? I had this discussion with Erin Rembrandts. She also worked for a carbon offset company for a while, and for me it feels like, and I'm not judging you, to be clear, right?
No,
I'm just trying to get this clear, right? So it sounds like you're giving these companies who pollute the opportunity to continue their polluting.
Yeah, it's a fair statement, and it's a statement that was one of the reasons that I said I don't want to be involved in carbon credits, because you're actually continuing the cycle of the companies who are polluting the air. Yes, so completely agree with that statement. And that's the reason that we have actually developed this framework, because we're also looking into the investor. So what is the investor going to do? Are they really going to offset and trying to decrease their carbon issuance? Or are they going to buy the offset to continue the business and even increase their carbon output? So there is also a monitoring and control on the investment part. Can we completely take that out of the equation? No, I don't think so. So is it like a cycle? Yes, I think partly it will be a cycle. But what can we do? Should we then not do these kind of projects and sustain the mangroves and the seagrass beds? We need to get these going, and we need to be aware of the fact that, for instance, mangroves are like a natural dike to the increase of the sea level. So if we want to protect our land, the countries who are actually nearby the ocean, we have to increase the mangrove forests. And yes, I agree with you. Do you continue this cycle? Yes. So that's another part of the business. How are we going to decrease the output of the carbon? Is it part of our business? Partly, because we're going to look at the investors and see if they're not using it just to be continuing the journey and not looking at other aspects of the business. So we're really going to look into, okay, what are the goals of a company? Are they going to decrease in the end under the big line anyway? Or are they going to use it just to offset and continue their journey? But it's a fair question.
How do you use the inner development goals in this?
And that has to do with stakeholder management. So they're part of the stakeholder management. And that's really like going to the being. So I really think that the outer world is putting a lot of KPIs, so to say, on us. So we have to do this, we have to do that before 2030 and before 2050. So this is what people are working with. But in the meantime, they're actually driven by creating profit, getting more. So how do you balance that? You can't. I mean, this has to change. People need to get aware of the fact what is going wrong in this world, and they have to feel it from their inner world, from their passion, from their heart. No, we want to change this world because we're living on this world, because we want to leave a better world for our children, whatever reason we can come up with, but it has to come from the being. So I really believe that the development of that part of consciousness is very, very much important in these kind of projects. So stakeholder management for me starts with being. So how am I going to do this kind of coaching with the stakeholders? There will be a lot of instruments, there will be exercises. I start to open the heart, becoming aware of what we as humankind have been doing with this world. And from there,
I'm thinking of something now. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this comes up now, and I feel I have to ask you now. Do you feel that your Indonesian root, your spiritual root, is helping you on this part to really use that in your coaching?
Yes.
Being?
Yes. And
how?
It has always been with me. I've never realized it, but there is this inner knowing, this intuition, which I have denied for a long time because my mind always said differently. And that's this, what I talked about in the beginning, this really suddenly could feel the difference between the mind and the heart, made me realize that that is my battle. And my heart knows, and I know how to listen to my heart because I know how to get there. I know my intuition. I start to develop a kind of way of letting it out. not silence it, but start to listen to it when my heart says, no, no, you have to do it like this, or you have to do it like that. So yes, I think it's my Indonesian roots. What helps me with my Dutch roots is that I'm very open and very clear and very concise with what I'm saying. So I can actually give words immediately to what I feel, what my intuition is telling me. So in my coaching, something comes up and I immediately tell it now to the team or to the person I'm coaching. In a way, telling for myself, okay, I like you just said to me, I just want to ask you this question, and just connecting with it and just telling the person across me or the team across me, okay, this thought comes in my mind, and just correct me if I'm wrong. If it doesn't resonate, just tell me. If it resonates, we take it from there. And I just tell it like you did. And to be honest, in 95% of the cases, it resonates. So I started to trust that voice because it does resonate with the people I'm actually talking to. And I learned the last 3-4 years to put that voice forward. And it's always on point. It's always on point. So for me, there's no hurdle anymore in letting this voice be heard.
So to finalize this conversation, you are also a member of the IDG Global Coordinator team since February this year, I believe. What is it, what you do there?
That's a beautiful question, because I've asked myself that question many times. What am I doing here? I was introduced to that group because we were really in the infant stage of setting up the team. I was introduced by Rafaela. I told you about 3.5 years ago. I met her for her first time with the IDT Summit. And she said, Marja, you can add value there. Yeah, but I was not part of a hub. I was traveling the world, I'm not in a specific place. I was at that moment actually part of the Vienna hub because we were living, oh no, that was last year. So, oh yeah, I was part of the Vienna hub because we've been living in December in Vienna for a few weeks. We can talk for hours. So I was introduced to this team and I was thinking, what is the value that I add? And actually I add that value. So what I feel is that I challenge because I put this intuition, this heart voice forward. I mirror, and I do a lot of opening of the meetings by grounding exercises, by meditation and breathing. So that's, I hope, the value, and yeah, I hope that is the value that I add. Yeah, that's it. So I think it's really talking from the heart, and sometimes it's confronting because I'm not a person who's trying to conform with what everybody is saying, because I've been there, done that, became very unhappy about that. So I'm really like, okay, yes, well, everybody can have this opinion, but I think that we should also look at this, because my heart is saying, no, it should be more like this or that. And then it opens up conversation, or it gives some insight. That, yeah, I think that is the value that I add, next to being like very social and really getting people together. And
of course.
Yeah.
Oh, Marjadi, I thank you very much. I've learned a lot in this conversation. Learn about, of course, what contributed to your burnout, how you've been fighting this analytical male kind of environment with the feelings from your heart, probably more like the Indonesian roots there. Starting something with passion, and how passion really drives you, and not just you, but probably any person. You just said, if you have passion, you can do anything. And now how you use this passion to work towards a better goal, a better world, I should say, in restoring, rebuilding, reorganizing maybe the blue carbon situation all over the world, where the oceans, like you just said, are very important to our carbon offset, not offset, but our carbon intake. And yes, if we don't take care of our oceans, we run into so much problems.
Mm-hmm.
We already are on a lot of difficulty paths right now because of that, with the acidification of the ocean, the changing of the currents, and there's so much going on that sounds so far away from many people, but it's really endangering um, the human, but also any non-human species on the world right now. So thank you for taking us with you on that path, on that route, on that journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish you a lot of new peoples, new souls, new investors in your business, in your organization, and in these projects, so that we can build on this, and you can also bring their being part into this, and to help them to look at the world in a bit of a different way than we do now. So thank you for that.
It was my pleasure, and thank you for having me.